Hello again, everybody. Welcome to the Racing Writers Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Kelly Crandall. My guest today is Camping World Truck Series driver Brett Moffitt of Hattori Racing and the number 16 team. Brett and I spoke a couple weeks ago for about 35 minutes here for the podcast, and we met at the team shop in Mooresville, North Carolina. A wonderful, beautiful facility. If anybody ever gets the chance to see it, it's very impressive. A very nice, impressive operation they've got going on over there, and it shows on the racetrack, which is why I wanted to speak to Brett, because that team is off to a hot start. Of course, Brett has already gone to victory lane, and they have been consistent contenders all year long. So we're going to talk to Brett about how this deal with Hattori came to be. You know, if you think about it, it was really late in the offseason when we heard that Ryan Truex was leaving, and then all of a sudden Brett Moffitt was going to get this opportunity. And he certainly, again, it is showing on the racetrack. So Brett and I spoke again for about 35 minutes. Well, we're going to talk about a bunch of different things, because Brett, at 25 years old, as you'll hear me reference on the podcast, he's already been in NASCAR for quite some time. He's been Rookie of the Year in the Cup Series. He's had opportunities in the Truck Series, but he's also had things be yanked out from underneath him just when he thought he was starting to get some stability, just when he thought, okay, this is the time where I can settle in and I've made it and I've got something now that I can ride out and be successful. And it hasn't been easy. We're going to talk about that. Of course, Brett has a very interesting journey of how he got to North Carolina, how he was making ends meet, where he was staying, things that he was doing as he tried to get a break here in NASCAR. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about his golf game, because Brett, not only is he a big golfer, but he's very, very competitive, and you're going to hear him talk, which I got a kick out of, how competitive he is, so much so that he compares himself to Kyle Busch. He hates to lose. He even hates to be second. He would rather be third, and I got a giant kick out of that. I think you all will enjoy it. This conversation is actually one of the better ones I think we've had on the podcast. It was just a really good day. Brett was excited to get going. He was excited to do the podcast, very open and honest, and we had a really good time there again at the shop. So thank you to his PR rep and communications guy over there at Hattori, Josh Weinrich, for putting this together. Again, Josh has been a great fan of the show, great friend, very supportive, and it's fun to get his driver on here. Before we get going, as always, if you have not left a rating and review, I hope you do so. I hope you are spreading the word about the podcast. It is crazy to me that we are almost 30 episodes in after starting this late last year. So I hope you're doing that. Please spread the love. Next week's episode is one I think you're all going to love as well. It's going to be Bubba Wallace, but it's not going to be so much a racing conversation. As you know, if you follow Bubba, he's very active and outgoing, so we're going to talk about his hobbies away from the racetrack, and I won't give too much away, but Bubba was quite animated talking about some stuff. But let's get to this week. Again, a great conversation with Brett Moffitt and his journey and everything he's got going on in his life. So, thanks for the support. Here we go. Brett Moffitt on the Racing Writers Podcast. Let's start with your season. We are only a couple races in. The truck schedule, man, it's just so few races here, then you're done for a while. So going in now to this break, how do you kind of sum up these first couple races? You got that win. So
yeah, I'd say we're off to a pretty darn good start here. You know, I expected us to run well, and this team, from where they started the 17 season to where they ended, you know, they were leaps and bounds in front of where they started. So I figured we could carry that momentum, and I didn't think we would find victory lane this early, but I'm super glad we did, and that takes a lot of weight off my shoulders. So, you know, everyone here at Hattori Racing is just really pumped up, and it's been a lot of fun so far.
Is the plan still to try to make this a full-time effort?
Yeah, that's the plan moving forward. We're finishing up all the details on that right now, and
does it look good?
Yeah.
I'm assuming the win.
We're going. That was part of the weight off my shoulders for sure. You know, this started as a limited schedule, and we kind of assessed and see how it went, and we found victory lane, and now we're gonna go race for a championship.
So how does it feel, Brett, just in general, to have that stability in a sense? Because those who know your story, you've been kind of everywhere.
My first time in a long time racing for a championship.
So the win takes a weight off your shoulders in a sense, but just to know that you do kind of have a home here, does that make it, do you breathe a little bit easier every day in a sense?
Oh, for sure. I've been, every year of my career I had a good deal going at MWR, and then they shut down, and then that really, put the weight back on me of, okay, every season, I don't know what's going to happen next, and to to have this deal come together and for it to be winning equipment, that's the biggest part of it that really excites me. It's not just having a deal to go run the season, it's having a deal to go win races and to fight for a championship. And so, I haven't been in that position for a while, so I need to do my homework and study and get back to points racing and try to do the best we can.
So what I find interesting is in all of the ups and downs and the places that you've been and in the seat and out of the seat, you come out of the box this year, and in the first few races, you've been fast. And a lot of people will say, well, the team is fast, which, of course, is a great compliment to the team. But from a driver aspect of you mentally being able to get back behind the wheel and go fast, is there anything to that? Like, when you're out of the seat for a while and then you come back, do you have to adjust to racing again? Or what is it like for you mentally behind the wheel?
Yeah, you have to adjust to winning races or to being in contention to win. You run the race a little differently. You got to be almost a little more calm in a sense and know when it's your time to go. I guess it's when you're in the back, you're racing as hard as you can every single lap because you're trying to get the most out of the car that you can. And when you get in good equipment like this, you got to race a lot smarter, and it becomes more of a chess game instead of checkers, where in the back it's if I can get in front of this guy, I'm going to get in front of this guy, where here we can rely a lot more on strategy and which lane we're in to restart, and you can take advantage of a race a little bit smarter than you do in the back for sure. So adjusting how to be leading races and winning races, I would say is the hardest thing. Like I said, when you're in the back, you always have that carrot in front of you, that next car to pass. Well, when you're leading races here, you got to set your own pace, and you got to be smart about that and save your equipment. So it's a little bit different, but it's gone well.
And also, I guess to that point, it sounds like that all stems from just understanding the equipment that you're in, understanding again how the race strategy in a sense is going to change for you, from going in the back to trying to just finish in a certain position to running up front and knowing, okay, we can lead laps, we can finish well, almost like a bigger picture type thing where you kind of have to keep that in mind.
Yeah, and that's all confidence in the team and in Scott Zeppedelli, the crew chief. And Martinsville, I thought we were in a very vulnerable position when we pitted, but luckily everyone came down with us behind us, and we lost one spot on pit road, but we had new tires. So Martinsville, I think, is a great example of what this team and Scott Zeppedelli and I can do. Like, I don't feel like we had a great race truck all race long at Martinsville, but we made a really good day out of it. And in the past, working with Scott at Red Horse, we seemed to do the same thing. Even when we weren't great, we could still come away with a top 5 or so. And I think that leans a lot of confidence in each other and in the fact that we're going to have a good, strong battle for a championship.
What was it like being sidelined? Like, how did you spend your time? Were you, I'm sure that, a little bit is disappointing and you're watching races, or did you watch races?
Sometimes.
And I get, so were you making phone calls? Do you have people helping with that? Do you play iRacing? How did you spend that time until you were able to land something, whether it was a one-off or now end up here at Hattori?
Yeah, it's depressing for sure. As a race car driver and as a competitor, I'm competitive in everything I do, and to sit back and have to watch it sucks, to be honest. And I've been in positions where I've made the most of them with Red Horse filling in for Tift, and it's like, okay, that should get some traction, and then you end up in the same spot again, and it's you're constantly making calls. But as we know, it's a big money-driven sport these days, and if you don't have the check to bring, then you're probably not going to get in the seat. And it's very fortunate that Shiggy works as hard as he does to bring funding to put someone like me in his truck and to give me this opportunity. But to kill time, I got really good at golf, so. It was actually really funny. So me and Ryan Reed were playing at the golf course, and Landon Castle lives on a par 3 green. And Ryan was off in the rough, missed the green off the tee, and I was on. And Landon walks out on his patio, and he yells at us, "Well, I guess we can see who doesn't have a ride." Because I was playing better golf, but I'm a competitor, so whatever I'm doing to fill my time, I like to be competitive. I like to feel that fire, and I prefer to be racing. But if I need to fill time doing something else, then I'll compete at that.
So before getting to Hattori, was there, like I said, you've been at Michael Waltrip Racing, you did the deal at Red Horse, you have really kind of been all over the place, and it's amazing to think you're only 25.
Yeah.
And you kind of remind me of like a Joey Logano in a sense, where it feels like you've been around forever, but you're still so young.
Yeah.
In any of those opportunities that you've previously had, did you think, okay, this is the one for sure that's going to stick? And then,
earlier in my life I did, and,
right.
and then I learned that even if it's for sure, it's not. Right. The big setback to me personally was the MWR deal, having a multi-year contract with them and making decent money and having a comfortable living, to all of a sudden we're sitting in the trailer. I was running for Front Row at the time, but still employed by MWR at Bristol, and they come on with a press conference that I think it was Bristol that they're shutting down, yes. And I was like, oh boy, there goes my paycheck.
I was sitting in the media center. I remember that day quite well.
Yeah, so it was, that was the first real multi-year thing I had going, where I was like, okay, this is a good home. Like, at least I have a testing job. I'm making an income. And then kind of the same thing happened with Red Horse. Yeah.
Oh, in 2015.
15, yeah.
So
that was the first blow, and then when the deal with Red Horse happened, kind of in the same fashion, we got back from Charlotte, and they said they were shutting down. That was very unexpected too, and you never know in this sport, and I think all professions are like that, but this one for sure.
You you land here at Hattori, and one of the things that I find fascinating is you're here, Scott Zipadelli, your crew chief, is here, and your truck chief, Chris Rice, is
Tim Rice.
Tim Rice.
Yep.
Chris, I work with
Easy
Chris.
confusion.
Yeah, I work with Chris a few times on some other stuff, so he's
I've worked with him too. He's a great guy.
He's a great guy, but he's always on your mind. Nutcase. So Tim Rice is here, your truck chief, and you all work together at Red Horse in the same positions, I believe it was. Yep. So first off, kind of how funny is that you're now all over here?
It's really cool. It's honestly, when you get a good group of people, you need to keep them together, because that's what makes this race team so successful. We're not the biggest truck team by any means, but we have really quality people and quality equipment, and Shiggy works really hard to provide that for us. So not only those two, but the general manager, Mike Gricci, he was my crew chief when I ran K&N East at MWR. Two of the guys on the crew were at MWR.
Wow.
On my K&N team, and then another one was at MWR and worked on the Cup team when I was there. So most of the guys on the team, we've all worked together before, and obviously Josh, the PR guy, was at Red Horse too. So, I think that's what made this late transition so successful, is that we all knew each other and had confidence in each other before the season started. And, obviously we were kind of a late pull together with getting everything together to go racing this year, but I think that makes it a lot easier.
And I was going to ask, you come over here, you guys all have that chemistry, you know each other. Has that helped get off to such a good start, because you've already got that that pre-existing relationship? Yeah,
I think it definitely does, and it just all goes back to having confidence in each other. No one doubts each other for the most part. I guess at Martinsville I doubted Scott with pitting, but then it worked out really well.
Martinsville has an effect on making people,
You do a lot of questionable thinking there.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
It's just having confidence in each other and knowing that everyone in their position does a really, really good job at it. And that's what gives us the benefit of the doubt in most situations. We don't have to rely on looking out for each other when we know that Tim's a really good truck chief and Scott's a really good crew chief. It just helps the chemistry go together.
Tim Rice. I will get that right eventually. Gosh, I'm going to have to pick on Chris now some more. So let's go back a little bit, because as I told you before we started recording, I want to better get to know you and your journey. I've covered you the last couple years, again, as you've been all over the place, but just better get to know your kind of path leading to this point. So being from Grimes, Iowa, I don't imagine that kind of as a racing, I guess, hotbed. So I guess how exactly did you really kind of get the racing bug?
It's a funny story.
I love it.
So my dad worked all the time when I was a kid, and he would go to some sporting events, which I was really bad at all, or most stick and ball sports. So that's why I don't play any of those. But
we'll have to circle back to that.
Yeah. So my mom actually told my dad that we needed a hobby together because he was working too much or whatever the reasoning. I don't know exactly how it went down, but I was about 10 years old, and so he was kind of wondering what the heck he was going to do, and he owns a home building company, and one of his framers and his son race go-karts. And they said, well, if you want to try it, we'll set him up a go-kart to run. And I had never watched racing, never was interested in it. And I ran a go-kart and I sucked one time, and I was like, this is stupid. Like it was just bad. I didn't even know you were supposed to go high on the straightaways, low in the corners, and it was pretty embarrassing. And for some reason, about a year later, it kind of hit me that I wanted to try it again. I'd started watching racing with my dad in between then, and I tried it again, and we just kind of went from there. There's a lot of dirt track racing in Iowa, so that's what I moved into next, was a dirt modified. And, we never really thought it'd be a career, and I just kept being successful at every level that we went to, and eventually it, became a full-fledged push of, okay, this is a good shot. You can go make a career doing this. So it kind of just snowballed from there. My dad never raced. He raced motorcycles for a year or two out of high school, and that was about the extent of our racing. And that goes back to surrounding yourself with the right people. And every ladder of the way, we had the right people there coaching us and telling us what's the next best step. And somehow we're here.
So what stands out there is, of course, so many times in racing, people want to talk about a second-generation driver or tied into racing somehow. It seems like you can, Daniel Hamrick is another example. I love these stories where you guys can sit down and talk to young kids or whoever it may be and be like, you can still do this, you can still succeed, even if you don't come from racing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look at William Byron.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the
so
prime example
yeah.
is William Byron, and it's like, if you're good at it, go with it. It doesn't matter if your dad's Jeff Gordon or not. That has no ability on your driving ability. So
it has to bring a little bit of pride too.
Yeah, for sure.
Not that
it definitely doesn't make it easier.
Yeah.
Not having a family in racing.
One player is better than the other. But again, going back to Daniel Hamrick, I mean, he's so proud of his roots and he's so proud of how he got here. That's kind of just what makes me think that is. You guys can really attest to the fact that if you work at it, you can do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very special thing being able to do that. And again, that just goes back to surrounding yourself with the right people. And I'm sure Hamrick had the right people in his career leading him through his way. And, as a family that knew nothing about racing, it was relying on the right people. And my dad has built a home building business doing that. And that's how the racing career worked. And that's what works so well here at HRE. So it's just the thing to do.
So growing up, once you finally got into racing, did you watch a lot of NASCAR, or what was it that you really liked?
That I was good at it. I'm a competitor.
Yeah.
I don't.
So you weren't one of those kids then that was like, collecting stuff and,
I have a few things.
Okay.
I was a big Jeff Gordon fan as a kid.
That's what I was.
And so the closest race was Kansas.
Yep.
Speedway to us in Des Moines, Iowa. We went there and I got a Jeff Gordon autograph clock. And then at some point in the line, my dad got me like the old school big puffy, like Letterman jacket type that I mean, just ugly as all get out. But I thought it was the coolest thing, and that was signed by Jeff Gordon.
So, side note on that, it's funny. Oh my gosh, it's so funny you bring that up. I recorded with Matt Tiff this morning over at Go Fast Racing, and we were kind of having along the lines of the same conversation. And he brought up the same thing. He said, "I used to have one of those big driver jackets."
Oh, I still got
it. And so we just started laughing because he was talking about how he had a Dale Jr. Budweiser one, and I said that I may or may not have known someone who also had one that wore it to middle school, and it did not go over very well with the principal.
Yeah, I could see where that would be a problem.
But yes, those big jackets, they just looked so cool.
Oh yeah,
because there was a fascination.
I don't know about cool, but they look interesting.
Well, they were interesting.
They stand out.
Yeah, exactly. Because you could button them up and feel like you kind of had your own little fire, a fire suit. So
yeah, I mean those are the coolest things. And then as I transitioned into a big Jimmy Johnson fan as I got older, just out of respect for everything he's done, obviously. And one of my mom's co-workers at the time gave me an autograph, a crystal version of his car. That was pretty cool too. So that's about all I have, but
sounds awesome.
They're definitely my two that I look up to the most.
Going back to your dad and your family, what is the relationship like now? Do they get a kick out of what you do? Do they get to
my dad is he'll almost drive his own business into the ground because he is at every single race that I'm in.
Really?
He's missed one race, well, kind of two now, because he had to get back to work after Martinsville snowed out. So he missed the Monday part of Martinsville, and he was sitting there debating. He's like, should I stay? I'm like, Dad, just go. It'll be fine. He's like, well, I was here for the start of it. And I was like, yeah, you were. We'll count it.
Yeah.
Remember,
it's only the start that goes into the rule. The official
Once it started, you were there.
Yes.
Yeah, so he's been when I raced Cup all of 2015, came to every single race. He's truly been my biggest supporter. It's pretty unreal what he's sacrificed and done for me, and I can't imagine ever doing that for someone, but I guess when it's your kid, that's worth it. But I mean, awesome. It makes it special to me, especially when he's there when we win the races. When we won Michigan and Atlanta, he was at both of those, and that's really cool.
What about getting to North Carolina? Did you move on your own? How did that transition go for you to be able to come down here?
Yeah, so I was actually, my last 2 years of high school, I ended up being homeschooled just due to traveling for racing all the time. And I think I started my junior year, and like 8 weeks in, I'd missed 4 weeks of class, and I was like, this is impossible. So I ended up being homeschooled my last 2 years, and as soon as I finished that is actually the time when I ran for Michael Waltrip Racing in the K&N East car, and Mike Ricci, our general manager currently, actually let me come down and stay with him for a while. So I was living at his house. And
so you came down on your own?
Yeah, I ended up finding a townhouse to live in, and I worked at the shop every morning, and if I wasn't there, he'd call me and chew me out. So it was a lot of fun, but
you had somebody looking
really
out
good
for
learning
you.
experience. Yeah.
On your website, you've mentioned now a few times how competitive you are. And when digging around and looking at different things to kind of draw inspiration on for today, the one thing on your website that I came across that I really, really liked was you said, I'm the Kyle Busch type where I just hate losing.
Yes.
And you keep mentioning that competitive side. Has it always been like that?
Yeah, it definitely has. I mean, like...
Has it just built over time? Like, because you're not, out here throwing temper tantrums. Not that I'm specifically meaning Kyle, but in general.
No, yeah.
When you talk about
I handle it differently, I would say.
Right. When you talk about how competitive you are, and you say you just hate losing, a lot of people handle that a different way.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess kind of just describe how you balance wanting to win and lead every lap and win practice and all that to when you get in the race knowing, okay, I can't make a complete fool out of myself.
Yeah. I don't know. I've just always held it on the inside, I guess.
Does the competitiveness come from, because going back to what you said earlier too, you feel like this is what you're really good at? Is that do the two then kind of go hand in hand, that because you're so confident in what you can do, that's where the competitiveness comes from? Yeah,
and I guess it depends on the situation too. If I get beat straight up, then I'm good with it.
Right.
You guys had a better truck than us and you ran a better race, I'm good with it. But when we're a truck that should have won, or a Las Vegas scenario this year, that stuff really eats at me when it's, okay, we should have won that race.
When you feel like it's on you.
Yeah, it's like we should have won that race, and outside circumstances said no. But that's when I hate losing. I hate finishing second. I'd rather finish third than second most of the time.
Really? Why is that?
Because second, you're just so close to winning. Okay. I mean, realistically, I'd like to finish second.
It's a good
But the feeling, I don't get near as mad when we finish third. Right. Especially if we had a fifth place truck and we finished third, I don't feel bad about it. But when we have a top two truck and we finish second, I get really mad. So.
I guess it's kind of like in other, fans of other sports would say, would you rather your team get to the Super Bowl and lose, or would you rather them get knocked out in like the AFC Championship?
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Right? Like the difference between second and third. Like
what
hurts less?
Or it's like, would you rather the team that knocked your team out win the Super Bowl or lose it? Like, because at least if they won it, you lost. You're technically second place if you look at it right now. So. I hate losing. Whether it's, we'll play golf for a whopping $20, and when I lose that, I get pissed. So, I hate losing.
I love it. Do you have a mentor? Have you had somebody that you talk to a lot? Have you anybody you've leaned on over the years?
I wouldn't say as much in recent years, but growing up, when I started dirt racing and then asphalt late model racing, Bob Harris, who actually invented kind of the new modern style dirt modified chassis back in Iowa, he really guided us a long ways, and he was just helping out, and he knew a lot more about the sport than our family did, and he was willing to help out and kind of steer the ship, and he did a lot molding me to working on my own race cars. And so when I was 14 years old running a modified, my dad would work all day, and as soon as I'd get home from school, I'd work on the modified, and if we were racing that night, I'd load it up and have it ready to go by the time he got home. So that was his big thing. And then, at the start, he would help me with adjustments, and then by the end, he would listen to what I think the adjustments are and make me learn from either my correct doing or wrong doing. And I think that was a big part of understanding the race car and understanding what you're dealing with, and I think that translates to helping, even Zippy and them on adjustments, like what exactly I need in the truck to go faster. So I think that was the biggest learning of my career, and the biggest help in my career was Bob Harris making me do that on my own.
When it comes to the truck series, you guys being a single truck team, is there anybody in the series that you like to pick their brain, or do you guys just kind of focus on your own thing?
If I talk to anyone in the truck series, I would say most of the time it's Matt Crafton, because me and him have a pretty good relationship, and we'll just talk about both sides of the story. So, he'll give me his opinion and I'll give him mine. And even though we're competitors, it's if we can both get better from it until we're winning every race together, then that's going to be an issue. But, unless that's the case, then there's no sense in, trying to be rude to each other. I think if you can help each other and make us both better, it's better for everyone.
So I do want to talk about golf, and you've mentioned it a few times. First off, are you as competitive in golf?
Yes.
Okay.
Probably more.
Yeah.
Because there's no, if I mess up a shot, it's all on me.
Yeah.
There's no outside factors in golf.
So do you play with? You mentioned Ryan Reed, but do you normally play with others, or are you out maybe just on your own?
No, I never play on my own. I normally I'll play.
You got to make it a competition, right?
3 or 4, 5 times a week, depending if we're racing or not. And I got one buddy that I probably shouldn't say, but he works from home, aka at the golf course. And so whenever I show up, he's there, and I'm like, hey, you want to go play? And he's like, yeah.
Yeah.
So, it's always a competition.
Do you have a funny or memorable golfing story?
I got one about Ryan that really made me mad the other day.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So he hits his tee shot. So we're playing a match play with 3 of us, and if you win the hole, you get a dot, and whoever has the most dot at the end wins. And it was for $20, so it's not really
a competition.
Yeah, not a huge deal, but enough that it's not about the money; it's about winning.
It's about competition.
Yeah. So he hits his tee shot out of bounds left, and it was you couldn't really see it if it was out or not. But I was like, that might be out. And then I'm like, you should probably hit another, because in the rules you got to re-tee and hit 3 from the tee. Well, he goes up, and it's out of bounds, and the other guy playing with us, he's like, oh, it's all right, just drop. And so he's hitting 3 from up there now instead of the tee. Well, he ends up hitting a shot from there to about 40 or 60 yards out from the green, and then he holds out a 60-yard chip, and he gets a stroke on me every hole on top of that. So I made a par, and he made a BS bogey, and he ended up winning that day because of that. And I was like, what the heck? So,
once again,
yeah,
to lose.
Yeah, so that was not fun.
Is golf your escape from racing?
Yeah, I would say so. I'm a compulsive hobbyist, I would say.
Really?
So I get really into things for a while.
Oh, and then find something else?
Yeah, kind of. I did that with cycling a couple years ago.
Well,
but now I'm starting to get back into cycling.
Right,
so
and I was going to ask,
I'm trying to balance.
You've done wakeboarding and rock climbing and all this other stuff, and it seems like right now golf is kind of the big thing.
Yeah, I would say so. Wakeboarding I can get hurt though, so I
Yeah.
try to stay away from that. I like riding motocross too, but that's also when I have a good ride, I'm not going to go ride because
Right.
I don't want to hurt myself and do something stupid. So, because I just have no I can't hold back at all. I have no brakes.
So you're very active.
Yeah.
You like to have an activity. You like to have something
I
that
would
you
say
can
so.
go and invest your time in.
Yeah.
So besides golf, again, you've done, what kind of video games? That was on your website too. You like video games.
A lot of Call of Duty.
Really?
A lot of Call of Duty, yeah.
That seems very popular. Those
Yeah.
all those type of games, I guess.
But that's just the competitive nature too, because you're always competing.
I'm learning so much about you today, Brett. This is the whole point of this.
Yeah.
I just didn't picture you, I guess, as the golf guy. That's really what you've been posting a lot about. So I was curious if you're competitive. So on one hand, you think, okay, well then it's all about racing, but you still need that escape.
Yeah. No, I like to compete in different things, and I think the cycling's good, obviously, just to get you in shape. But it's also, we'll go ride for 2-3 hours at a time, and it's similar to race distances, and to ride that hard for that long and to keep mental focus, I think is big to go into the race car. Where golf is still a lot about mental focus, and it's a 4-hour round, and when you start falling apart at the end that costs you the win or whatever, it's still, I don't want to say it's training for racing, but I think you can take some aspects from it.
Right. I was curious kind of what the translation, if anything.
I think there is some, and I like watching a lot of documentaries about other professional athletes just to see the struggles they go through, because it's a totally different world, but they still go through a lot of the same things. So it's really cool to connect to that and just take what you can from all these situations and try to make your career better.
What are some of the ones that you've watched and maybe kind of connected with, or something stood out?
Oh, I haven't watched one in a while. Big question. I don't know. It's not a documentary, but there's a golf movie that's 7 Days in Utopia, and I think that's just a really good life lesson movie, and it really makes you bring what really matters into thought a little more often. So I'd say that's a good one if anyone wants to watch a movie.
Okay.
Yeah, even if you don't like golf, you can still learn a lot from it.
So it's more of just kind of like
it's a life lessons. Yeah, life lessons.
In terms of the bike and cycling and all that, have you kind of been in that, maybe caught up in that kind of craze now, or it seems like everybody is finding a way to be more conscious of health and dieting and exercise? Is there a part of that there too, or was it more of I just like riding a bike? Or maybe a little bit of both? Or?
Yeah, so I was really fat growing up. Or not really fat, but pretty chunky. And funny story, so when I was running for MWR's K&N team, the crew chief decided they were going to make donuts as my pit sign. And that was when I was a little chunky, and that kind of hit me hard. And so we actually brought the donuts back this year.
Really?
Because now I can look back and laugh at it.
Okay.
But yeah, I would say there was a big push that I went through to get in shape versus my childhood, and biking's just a great way to do it. There's really nothing else you can do that you're going to burn as many calories, and you get to be outdoors, and like if you ride with some friends, it's fun because you can kind of be social and have little competitions and race up the hills, and it's no different than having a workout buddy. When you have cycling friends, it gets you motivated and it gets you going.
What are some of the other things you do just in general, Brett? Like how would you describe maybe just your life in general? If you're not racing, you may be playing golf or doing what? What are other interests, things you like, maybe restaurant, like, I don't know. What is it, what is a typical week like for you?
Typical week?
In terms of just things you might end up doing.
Yeah, I mean, lately it's been, I try to at least work out 5 days a week or so. A lot of times I'll do 3 days of cycling, 2 days of weightlifting. Sometimes I switch that, and if the weather's bad, I won't cycle as much and I'll just go to the gym. But other than that, I normally come hang out at the shop for a little bit every day, or try to, and go play golf in the afternoon. So I like, having a cold beer on Friday night.
There you go.
Yeah, have a little fun.
Because once again, we have to kind of remind ourselves that you are 25.
Yeah. I like to have fun.
Yeah. It strikes me sometimes because I feel like I've covered you now for so long. You've always just been young Brett Moffitt, and I can say that because I'm actually older than you, and that makes me feel
hardly
some kind of way. So going back to racing, just for a few more questions, what would you say? You've done K&N, you've been in all 3 of NASCAR series. You've won races, you've been Cup Rookie of the Year, you've had ups and downs. But is there something in particular that so far you're most proud of in NASCAR or K&N or just anything
I would say,
before that?
I would say winning that first truck race was a really big moment. But before that,
and the way in which you did it.
Yeah. Just in having that limited opportunity with only a couple races to do something and people go out there and get it done was really special. But also my first Cup start at Dover, qualifying 18th and finishing 20th maybe, or 18th or somewhere in there. That was really cool because I was in an underfunded car, and that was a pretty big moment. And then finishing 8th at Atlanta in the Cup race was obviously at towards the top of my list too. Yeah. Just having the self-confidence to know that you can go get it done, and how many competitors in the Cup field came up to me or said something to me after the race of just what they thought and congratulated me. That was really special. You
were so emotional after that day. I was there, and again, covering that.
It was hard to talk without crying.
Yeah, and talking to you and just seeing how much that meant to you. When you look back now on that race, how much did that do for you? Either in terms of confidence or maybe even bringing attention to you for other people, whether it was competitors or team owners in NASCAR.
Yeah, I mean, well, it ultimately got me the Rookie of the Year because I wasn't going to run the full year if it wasn't for that, and obviously that was an interesting year with how many musical chairs were going on, but to be in a ride, I think I ran all but 3 races, I think, or maybe 4, but basically ran the full year, and that was obviously not the way you'd want to do it. Would be basically going straight to Cup because I'd only had 2 truck races and 1 Xfinity race before that, but I think I learned a lot, and those guys are so aggressive and so good that when you come back down to the Truck Series or to Xfinity, it's all the Cup guys just have that extra 10%, and it's racing around that and learning from that was really helpful. It may not have been the smartest thing to do, or not the way you draw it up, but I think the lessons I learned there and just how good those guys are and being around them, it really helps me when I'm having a good truck ride now. and it just helps with confidence and everything.
The people that you say came up to you after the race, is there one that still stands out in particular? Maybe something that somebody said, or just somebody in general who you didn't expect maybe to come over and approach you?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest one, I don't know, it was a lot of cool stuff.
It was a big day.
It got a lot of attention. Carl Edwards, it was actually on like one of the last restarts. Joey Meyer was really cool about it because he was obviously spotting for Brad.
Yeah.
And I didn't even realize that at the time, and I was on his radio show that week. And he's like, I know, we were right behind you for 20 laps, and Brad tried everything he could to pass you, and he couldn't. And then it like hit me that, oh yeah, that's his spotter. So that was cool, and he was being very congratulating me. And Carl Edwards also, he's like, man, I saw he was in my mirror on that last restart, and I thought nothing of it. And then I looked up, and he was outside of me going into 1 and 2 at the very top. So
I think I remember hearing Carl talked about that as
well.
Yeah,
so it's cool. Just when you get respect out of the guys that you respect the most in the sport, that's really special, and that meant a lot.
So 2 more things for you. This is kind of an off-the-wall question, but I'm always curious with with drivers or even when celebrities or other people talk about it. The position that you're in, what is the coolest thing that racing has allowed you to do?
Oh, I haven't really done that much.
No?
I don't.
Like maybe even not somebody that has maybe come to the racetrack that you're like, wow, I didn't, maybe a celebrity or just maybe a place you've gone to go or do we have to?
We do get to meet like a lot of cool people.
Yeah.
I will say that. I guess I probably take a lot of it for granted. Mm-hmm. Because when you get so involved in the competition side, you kind of take the fact that, okay, I'm traveling every weekend and making money driving race cars. Okay. Making a living driving. I guess you take a lot of that for granted just
or
because
you just
you're
don't think about it in the moment.
Yeah, and you're so into the competition side, and like you're only thinking about the race and the results, and you forget about everything else you got to do along with it. Sometimes, I guess. Going to Las Vegas for the banquet was really special, and that was really cool. And having Jimmy Johnson, who I've idolized after my first truck win, he texted me and said how awesome it was to watch, and just little things like that. Like I guess I strive for respect of the guys that I respect. Not Mike Ricci, obviously.
After all the nice things he says.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no.
I had him when he was early.
Yeah.
No, I guess just getting the respect out of those that you look up to, and guys like Jimmy and Dale Jr. and those guys, when they acknowledge what you're able to do is probably the most special part of anything that's happened in my career.
So we'll wrap it up with this. Now that we know that you are hopefully going to be here for the whole season, you're running up front, we're going to be talking about you and seeing a lot more of you. When people see you or think of you, what do you want them to think of? And after this conversation, it's probably, I'm going to bet you're probably going to bring up that competitive word again.
Yeah, I know that.
But just in general.
I mean, if you're a fan, I'm a down-to-earth guy. Come talk to me, come have fun. But, it's for the most part just trying to do the best we can do and enjoy life while we're at it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really the biggest thing, right? It's someday this racing career will be over, and if I sink my whole life into it, then I probably won't be very happy at the end of it. But if we can just all enjoy life and keep running good, it'll be a good year.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, Brett. And now I am on a mission to go see that donuts the pit sign.
I don't know where they're at, but yeah, that was really
cool.
funny that they brought that back. I was like, it was actually we ran the first 3 races, and I couldn't, our pit sign was really dark, and it was just like a number 16 in neon. I'm like, I can't see that. Everybody has neon numbers going down pit road. I was like, I need something that stands out. And then Mike Ricci was like, you want to bring the donuts back? He said it jokingly, and I was like, yeah. Let's do it. Something
to easily spot coming down the road.
Exactly.
That's awesome. All
right. I was like, if nonetheless, it'll mess with everyone else's head wondering why there's donuts hanging down pit road.
Yeah, there you go. Kind of distract people as they're coming down pit road. Like, what is that?
Yeah.
A mental advantage.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate it, Brett. I'm glad we got to do this.
Yeah, this was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.